Hi there, welcome to the channel, and today I'm doing my one allowed government mandated walk, and so I thought while I'm on the walk might as well take my camera out and we'll try and take some pictures of anything we see, birds, insects, anything like that, and see how many I can get on my one walk. So this might be an interesting one. I'm going to show you some pictures of things that I've taken. I've got my Canon EOS M50 with a 55 to 200 lens on it. So let's just see what I can find. So just a quick note, this is going to be about quantity, not quality. I'm not a particularly great photographer, I'm trying to learn, but I don't know a huge amount yet. So I'm just going to see how many different things I can get, really. So yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy some of the pictures. The first picture I took is also probably one of the best. This is a robin, generally regarded as one of Britain's favourite birds. It can be very bold and inquisitive and can often seek out humans in gardens in the hopes of picking up some food. This picture was taken very quickly, and unfortunately the focus is on the branch and not quite on the bird. Next up is a rather distant shot of a magpie. Common birds, their striking black and white plumage is unmistakable. They're opportunistic omnivores and will eat fruit, insects, eggs and young birds, and can often be seen eating roadkill. They're a resident bird, meaning they tend to stay fairly close to where they hatched. This particular picture again doesn't quite get the magpie in focus, the hazards of using autofocus on a long range, I guess. I don't think this one counts as wildlife. There are a lot of dog walkers out here at the moment. The very familiar blackbird. This one is a male, the females are brown in colour. A very common bird all over the UK. It's a ground-dwelling bird, actually part of the thrush family. Very common in gardens and probably one of the most frequent sightings I had on this walk, apart from perhaps one other bird which we'll get to later. So this walk really is just minutes out of the city, although it's quite a rural location. I'm going through fields, that sort of thing. I've done this walk several times. It's one of the most interesting walks I can do from where I live. But I'm constantly disappointed about how many things you can actually see. There doesn't really seem to be a huge amount out here in terms of variety of species of birds. You get pigeons, some blackbirds and robins and things like that. That's really about all I can see. So there's a few insects about, though it's not particularly warm today. So it's probably a blackbird. But yeah, so it's a bit disappointing, but hopefully we'll get some nice things. This very brightly coloured bird is a male pheasant. It's not a native UK bird, but it may have been introduced in the 11th century. It's estimated that there's a stable breeding population of around 3 million across the UK, but around 15 million captive bred birds are released each autumn, of which around 7 million are shot during the winter hunting season. Undeniably a beautiful bird, it is controversial due to the almost entirely negative impacts on native wildlife caused by human activities in association with pheasants. It's not all about the birds, however. There are some nice wildflowers on offer. Here we see some red dead nettle. Although most people have a negative view of nettles due to the painful stings they cause, these nettles don't sting, and I think they actually look very pretty with their purple flowers and leaves. Also in shot is a bright yellow dandelion. In this picture we can see more red dead nettle, this time alongside some greater stitchwort, although horribly overexposed. It gets its name due to the apparent herbal remedy in which this plant is supposed to be able to cure the stitches you get in your side when you run. The entire plant is edible, with the leaves apparently tasting a bit like lettuce mixed with grass. With the flowers comes insects. The sun briefly came out at this point in my walk and I began to spot several pollinators visiting the dandelions. Dandelions, by the way, although considered to be weeds by many, are some of the earliest flowering plants and are a vital source of nectar to insects as they begin to emerge from hibernation. Please consider letting them grow in your garden. Here we see a bee of some kind collecting the nectar. There are loads of species of bee and bee mimicking insects, and unfortunately I'm just not knowledgeable enough to identify them. This is the same bee from a different angle. Here's another dandelion being visited by an insect, although bee-like in appearance. I suspect this is a hoverfly or other fly species, but again, I just don't know enough to be confident. This is the same insect from another angle. I really like these pictures, as you can see the pollen dusting all over the insect's body. Another dandelion, another bee. Some more domesticated animals, a bit overexposed, but that's what happens when I use the same camera settings for all my pictures. In this case, I think I had a high ISO and a small aperture, as I wanted to get the fastest shutter speed for capturing quick movements in birds and insects. Here we are, the most frequent sighting I had on the walk, and indeed all the time. This is a wood pigeon in flight. It's a fairly heavily zoomed in, and you may begin to spot some grain in the photo. I had my camera on burst mode, again to be able to capture fast moving animals and hopefully get a good shot. Here is another shot of the same bird. It can be distinguished from feral pigeons and other dove species by the white half ring on the back of its neck. There are millions of these birds in the UK, and they are happy in farmland and urban areas. Back to some insects. This is a rather poor shot of some kind of hoverfly. Unfortunately, this is the best angle I could get, but it is a rather nice close-up of a red dead nettle. I really like this picture, even if I'm not a huge fan of the fly. I believe it's a blue bottle fly. It has a striking metallic blue sheen that makes it rather pretty. The adults feed on nectar and pollinators of flowers, but females will lay their eggs on rotting meat and feces, which the larvae will eat. The maggots only take a few days to fully grow and will pupate in the soil for 2 or 3 weeks before emerging as adults. It's kind of frustrating actually, yeah? I can hear the birds singing, but I just can't see them. They're up in the trees somewhere, but from my vantage point, with the sun's getting a bit low, so the lighting's not brilliant right now. I just can't see where it's coming from. But I'm catching a couple of things, but not much, unfortunately. No animal species in this photo, but I really like the colourful composition of this picture, with the bright green of the pine needles and contrasting red of the berries and brown pine cones. More red dead nettle, this time being pollinated by a very large bumblebee. Again, there are multiple species, so it would take someone more knowledgeable than me to confidently identify it. But by the way, if you can identify any of these species, please do let me know in the comment section. This pretty bird is one of the most common and widespread birds in Britain and Ireland. It's a chaffinch, specifically a male, which can be identified by the pinkish red coloration of its face and breast. Outside of the breeding season, chaffinches form flocks in the open countryside and forage for seeds on the ground. But during the breeding season, they forage on trees for invertebrates, especially caterpillars, and feed them to their young. More pretty flowers. These are garden grape hyacinths, an early flowering species that is common in gardens. Indeed, I have loads in my garden. An attempt at a bit of an arty shot. I thought the bright yellow lichen on this tree really stood out and was a really striking visual shot. Okay, last species of the video, the lovely grey squirrel. I know many people don't like squirrels, especially the grey, as it is an invasive species that almost completely eradicated the native red squirrel. But come on, they're super cute. This one was quite happy to pose for a couple of pictures until a jogger ran by and scared it away. Well, I'm coming to the end of the walk now, so I'm not really too sure what I'm going to be getting until I get home and have a look and see what's in focus, and see if I can actually identify any of the things I've taken pictures of. But hopefully you've enjoyed it, and I'm going to go back inside, stay safe, wash your hands, keep away from everybody else, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.